You wake up every morning and feel that quiet weight in your chest. It's not physical pain, but something worse, something that eats away from the inside. The feeling that your life is passing by and you're not truly living it. You go through the motions, head to work, make small talk, maybe even force a smile for social media photos. But when you close your bedroom door at night and are alone with your thoughts, that question echoes again. What's it all for? What's the point of all this? You look at the calendar and see the days piling up, weeks turning into months, and you realize with a pang in your heart that you're just existing, not living with purpose. There's a void that no material achievement fills, no distraction can silence, no external praise can mend. It's as if you're waiting for something to start, waiting for your real life to finally show up, but it never does. And the more you chase happiness in external things, the deeper this hole within you becomes. You try to convince yourself that it's all okay, that this is just adult life, that everyone feels this way. But deep down you know something is fundamentally wrong when you have to force yourself to find reasons to keep going. When each day feels like an empty rerun of the last. When you feel more alone in a crowd than when you're literally by yourself. This existential emptiness isn't weakness. It's not being high-strung. It's not something you can simply ignore or overcome with positive thinking. It's the cry of your soul asking for something that our modern society has forgotten how to offer. Real meaning, authentic purpose, a genuine reason to get out of bed that goes beyond paying bills or meeting other people's expectations. And here's the liberating truth that can completely change the course of your year. There's a man who found the answers to this void in the most unlikely places of human existence. A psychiatrist who discovered the antidote to existential suffering precisely where most people would have lost all hope. Viktor Frankl survived 4 Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz, and in the midst of absolute hell, he discovered something none of his contemporaries had understood. He realized that human beings are not primarily driven by the pursuit of pleasure, as Freud claimed, nor by power, as Adler asserted, but by meaning. And even more importantly, he discovered that this meaning doesn't need to be invented or created, but found, and that it's available to anyone in any circumstance, including yours. What I'm about to share with you are not empty self-help techniques or miraculous promises of instant transformation. These are insights validated in history's cruelest laboratory, tested by a man who had every reason in the world to give up, but who found profound reasons to continue, and who then spent decades helping thousands of people do the same. If you're reading this now, in March, with the feeling that your year still hasn't taken off, that you're stuck in the same patterns as last year, that something needs to change radically for your life to make sense, then what follows might be exactly the turning point you've been looking for. Viktor Frankl's story begins in Vienna in 1942, when he had everything to live for. He was a promising young psychiatrist, had just gotten married, was building his career. He held a visa to the United States in his hand, a chance to escape the approaching horror in Europe. But there was a devastating problem. The visa was only for him and his wife. It didn't include his elderly parents. Frankl then faced a choice that encapsulates the very essence of his later philosophy. Flee to safety and abandon his parents to their fate, or stay and face destiny alongside them. He chose to stay. A few months later, the entire family was deported to the concentration camps. His mother died at Auschwitz. His father died of starvation and pneumonia at the Theresienstadt camp. His brother died in another gas chamber. His wife died at Bergen-Belsen. Frankl lost absolutely everything he loved, was reduced to a tattooed number on his arm, worked as a slave under inhumane conditions, witnessed unspeakable death and suffering daily. And it was precisely there, in the place where all human logic would suggest life has no meaning whatsoever, that he made the most important discovery of his professional life. Frankl observed that there were 2 types of prisoners around him: those who completely broke down, lost the will to live, and died quickly, often not from illness or execution, but simply because they gave up, and those who, even under the most brutal conditions, kept an inner spark alive, found small reasons to continue, preserved their essential humanity. The difference wasn't in the external conditions, everyone faced the same horror, but in the ability to find meaning even there. Frankl tells the story of an elderly prisoner who had completely lost the will to live after the death of his wife, to whom he had been married for decades. The man said there was nothing left to live for, that his life was over. Frankl then asked a simple yet revolutionary question: what if it had been you who died first? The man replied, tears in his eyes, that it would have been terrible for her, that she would have suffered immensely. Frankl then countered, then the meaning of your suffering now is to spare your beloved wife from this same suffering you are feeling. You are suffering in her place. That man's material conditions didn't change in the slightest. He remained in the same hell, but his relationship with suffering changed completely because he found meaning in it. This is the essence of Frankl's discovery. We cannot always control what happens to us. We cannot always avoid suffering, but we can always choose the attitude we adopt in the face of what happens to us. This ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose our internal response, is something no one can take away from us, not even in the worst imaginable scenarios. But what does that have to do with you, who probably aren't in a concentration camp, but are stuck in a job you hate, or a relationship that's gone cold, or simply feel like your life lacks the deep meaning you always imagined it would have? It has everything to do with it. From his experiences in the camps, Frankl developed what he called logotherapy, therapy through meaning. And the first fundamental principle of this approach is absolutely counterintuitive to our modern culture. The direct pursuit of happiness is counterproductive. The more you chase happiness as an end in itself, the more it eludes you. Frankl called this hyperreflection, the human tendency to become overly focused on oneself, constantly monitoring one's own emotional state, asking, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I enjoying my life? And this hyper-reflection, this constant inward gaze, this obsession with one's own satisfaction, paradoxically destroys the possibility of genuine satisfaction. True happiness, according to Frankl, cannot be pursued. It can only happen as a byproduct of having found something to live for that is greater than yourself. Think about the happiest people you know. They're probably not the ones obsessed with their own happiness, going to countless therapies focused solely on their own well-being, buying every self-help book, attending every personal development workshop. Genuinely happy people are those absorbed in something larger than themselves, a job they find meaningful, relationships in which they give generously, causes they fight for, creations they bring into the world. They aren't constantly asking if they're happy because they're too busy living a life full of purpose. This is a devastating truth for our self-centered culture. You are not the center of the universe, and the more you act like you are, the emptier and unhappier you become. Frankl identified 3 main paths through which we can find meaning in life, and it's crucial to understand that they are not mutually exclusive. You don't have to choose just one. You can move between all 3 throughout your life. The first path is through creative achievements or deeds, through what we give to the world. This could be your work when it genuinely contributes to something larger. It could be a piece of art you create, a project you lead, a business you build, anything that leaves the world slightly better than you found it. But be warned, this isn't about just any work or any productivity. Frankl isn't talking about the empty productivity our society worships, the kind of doing things just to feel busy or important. He's talking about creating or doing something that has intrinsic value, something that would be a genuine loss if it didn't exist. Many people spend their entire lives in jobs they know, deep down don't contribute anything significant to the world, just shuffle papers, just generate profits for shareholders, just perpetuate systems that could cease to exist without anyone missing them. And these people invariably develop what Frankl called an existential vacuum, because there's no substitute for the feeling that your daily effort truly matters. The second path to finding meaning is through lived experiences or genuine encounters with other people, through what we receive from the world. This could be deep love for someone. It could be contemplating the beauty in nature or art. It could be moments of authentic connection, experiences that pull us out of ourselves and connect us to something larger. Frankl recounts that in the concentration camps, one of the most significant moments he experienced was when, after a brutal day of forced labor, he and other prisoners were returning to the camp at dusk and saw an absolutely stunning sunset over the Bavarian mountains. For a few minutes, everyone forgot where they were, forgot their hunger, forgot their suffering, and were simply absorbed in the beauty of that moment. One prisoner murmured to another, "How beautiful the world can be." That experience of beauty, even amidst horror, was an affirmation of life, a reminder that there are things greater than our individual suffering. How often do you pass by beautiful landscapes, by potentially significant moments, by opportunities for real connection with others, but you're so absorbed in your own mental drama, so preoccupied with your own anxieties and dissatisfactions, that you can't truly be present to receive what life is offering? And now I want to pause and really talk to you. I know many of you watching this video feel like you're just surviving, going through the motions, getting through the days, without truly finding that deep sense of meaning that makes it all worthwhile. So tell me here in the comments, do you feel like your current life, even when things are going relatively well, lacks a real purpose that makes you wake up with genuine enthusiasm? If so, simply write, "I need to find my meaning." Nothing more. And know that by doing so, you're helping other people here in the comments feel less alone. Your experience matters. It's often liberating just to see that others are going through the exact same thing and are on this same journey of seeking meaning. When you share, you not only validate your own experience, but show dozens of other people that they're not alone in this pursuit. Let's create a community here of people brave enough to admit they want more from life than just existing. The third path to finding meaning, and this is perhaps the most profound and revolutionary in Frankl's philosophy, is through the attitude we adopt in the face of unavoidable suffering. Take careful note. It's not just any suffering, but unavoidable suffering, the kind that cannot be sidestepped or eliminated. Frankl made a crucial distinction between necessary and unnecessary suffering. Unnecessary suffering is what we create for ourselves through poor choices, self-sabotage, refusing to change what can be changed. This type of suffering should be eliminated. There's nothing noble or meaningful about it. But there's a type of suffering that is an inherent part of the human condition. Losing loved ones, serious illness, aging, death, failures despite our best efforts, limitations we didn't choose. When faced with this kind of suffering, the question isn't how to avoid it, because it can't be avoided, but rather what attitude to adopt towards it, what meaning to find within it. Frankl had a patient, an elderly doctor, who had been suffering from deep depression for 2 years ever since his wife died. He had loved that woman profoundly. They had been married for over 30 years, and he simply couldn't get over the loss. Frankl asked him, "What would have happened, doctor, if you had died first and your wife had survived?" The man replied, "Oh, it would have been terrible for her. She would have suffered so much." Frankl then said, "You see, doctor, that suffering was spared to her, and it was you who spared her. But now you have to pay for it by surviving and mourning her death." The man said nothing, but he grasped Frankl's hand and left the office. Frankl hadn't taken away his suffering. He hadn't brought his wife back, but he had shown him a meaning in that suffering. He was suffering in place of the person he loved most in the world. He was sparing her that pain, and that completely transformed his relationship with grief. The suffering continued, but it was no longer meaningless. It was no longer something that just crushed his life. It was now a final act of love. This concept is radically different from what our current culture preaches. We live in a society obsessed with eliminating all suffering, with seeking constant comfort, with avoiding any discomfort or pain. But Frankl shows us that this pursuit is not only impossible, but also impoverishing. Because unavoidable suffering, when faced with the right attitude, can be one of the greatest sources of growth, depth, and meaning in human life. This isn't about seeking suffering. That would be masochism and pathological. It's about recognizing that when suffering arrives, inevitably, you have a choice. You can let it destroy your life, embitter your soul, turn you into bitterness and resentment, or you can transform it into something meaningful through the attitude you adopt towards it. How many people do you know who have gone through terrible losses and become bitter, closed off, destructive? And how many do you know who have gone through similar suffering and become more compassionate, deeper, wiser, more capable of helping others who suffer? The difference isn't in what happened to them, but in the attitude they chose to adopt towards what happened. This is the ultimate freedom Frankl discovered in the concentration camps, the freedom to choose your own attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose your own path. The Nazis could control his body, they could deprive him of food, they could force him to work until exhaustion, they could even kill him, but they couldn't control how he chose to think about his situation, what meaning he found in it, what kind of person he chose to be amidst it all. And this inner freedom, this capacity to choose our response, is something no one can take away from you, no matter how difficult your external circumstances may be. Frankl developed specific therapeutic techniques based on this understanding, and 2 of them are particularly useful for contemporary problems. The first is called paradoxical intention. It works like this. When you fear something happening, especially fears related to anxiety and panic, the more you try to avoid it, the more power you give it. For example, if you're afraid of becoming anxious in social situations, you start avoiding social situations, but this only increases your fear. Paradoxical intention reverses this. Instead of trying to avoid the fear, you intentionally wish for it to happen. You even exaggerate it on purpose. Frankl had a patient who sweated excessively in social situations, which obviously made him even more nervous, creating a vicious cycle. Frankl instructed the patient that the next time he went to a social event, he should try to sweat as much as possible, to try to become the sweatiest person in the room. The result? When the patient actively tried to sweat, he couldn't. By removing the fear of sweating and turning it into something intentional, he broke the cycle of anxiety. This works for insomnia, for panic attacks, for various types of anxieties that are fueled precisely by our fear of them. When you stop fighting them and start inviting them in, they lose their power. The second technique is called dereflection. Remember hyperreflection we mentioned earlier, that tendency to become excessively self-focused. Dereflection is the antidote, directing your attention outward, away from yourself, towards something or someone larger. Frankl had patients who suffered from performance anxiety in various areas of life, always worried about how they were doing, if they were good enough, if they were impressing others. The more they focused on their own performance, the worse it became. The solution was dereflection, focusing not on themselves, but on the task itself, on the other people involved, on the larger purpose of what they were doing. A musician who becomes obsessed with how they are playing will likely play worse than if they are absorbed in the music itself, connected to what the music expresses, present to the experience of creating beauty. That's the great irony of human existence. The more you directly pursue your own happiness, satisfaction, and success, the less you achieve them. But the more you forget yourself in favor of something larger, the more you naturally experience fulfillment. If these ideas are starting to click for you, if you're realizing that maybe your direct pursuit of happiness is precisely what's holding you back from finding it, if you feel like you've finally stumbled upon a philosophy that speaks to your existential condition without offering simplistic solutions, then I want to invite you on a longer journey. Subscribe to this channel. Here we explore weekly not just Frankl, but an entire universe of humanist philosophers and thinkers who offer profound answers to the meaning crises so many of us are silently facing. And here's Frankl's most liberating insight, something that can completely shift your perspective. You don't need grand circumstances to find great meaning. Frankl found meaning in Auschwitz, literally in the worst place imaginable. This doesn't mean Auschwitz was good. It would be obscene to suggest that. It means that even there, in the utter absence of any comfort or pleasure, in the presence of every kind of suffering, it was possible to find meaning. And if it was possible there, it's possible anywhere, including right where you are now. You don't need to wait until you have your dream job, the perfect relationship, the ideal financial situation. Your meaning is available now, today, in the imperfect circumstances you have. The question isn't, when will I finally have a life worth living, but how can I find and create meaning in the life I'm already living? This isn't resignation. It's the opposite of resignation. It's recognizing your real power, not the power to control everything that happens to you. You'll never have that. But the power to choose who you are and how you respond to what happens. That's the ultimate inalienable freedom Frankl discovered. As long as you are alive, as long as you have consciousness, you have choice, always. So what will you do with that choice? How will you respond to the life that's asking you something right this very moment? Because it is asking, if you stop to listen, it's showing you situations that need your attention, people who need your presence, tasks that need your effort, sufferings that need your meaning. You can keep running away, postponing, hoping things will magically get better, complaining that your life isn't what you wanted. Or you can start today, now, to do what's within your reach, to be who you can be, to find meaning not in spite of the difficulties, but through them. Frankl used to say that the pessimist, faced with two bad options, chooses both. The optimistic realist recognizes that life presents inevitable problems, but sees in each problem a task, a question waiting for an answer, an opportunity to demonstrate what truly matters. Want to know what to do before March 10th to turn your year around? Stop asking what life can do for you and start asking what you can do for life. Stop pursuing happiness directly and start pursuing meaning, knowing that happiness will come as a consequence. Stop looking only inward, at your own feelings and satisfactions, and start looking outward, at the tasks that await you, at the people who need you, at the unique difference only you can make. This is the Copernican shift that can transform everything. Recognizing that you are not the center around which everything should revolve, but rather a part of something larger that calls you to contribute, to participate, to matter. And when you answer that call, when you find your unique meaning and live in accordance with it, then your life changes. Not because your circumstances necessarily changed, but because you changed your relationship with them. And that, in the end, is everything. If you enjoyed this content, If something here resonated with what you've been feeling, give it a like so more people can discover these ideas from Frankl. Share in the comments which insight impacted you the most, and most importantly, don't just let this knowledge stay in your head. Bring it into your life, experiment, test it out. See for yourself if Frankl was right. Your life is waiting for your answer.